Hey guys, Nick here, and today we are getting into part 6 of What If Eastman Survived. Now, in the last episode, we covered the wolf arc pretty much being wrapped up in a very different way than I've ever had the wolves really wrap up before, with every wolf except Owen sacrificing themselves to lead the horde far, far away and joining Alpha, who's obviously not yet known to the group, and her humongous eventual horde, which is going to prove a very, very complicated task to do with in the future, and Owen being reprimanded by Morgan and Eastman, and Rick saying that he honestly doesn't care, because the wolves saved his life, proving once and for all any doubt of his that Eastman's way works. Now, afterwards, we have survivors. Eastman, Deanna, Jesse, Ron, Sam, Pete, and Owen all survive the wolf arc. And with that wrapping up, we also have other changes, finally shifting the story, not much more, but getting more and more changes from the norm, which we're still going to have plenty of the norm. Carl still has both of his eyes, which I've done in way more stories than I care to count. One thing that won't change, except will, is the whole savior thing. Now, as much as I'd like to believe that the saviors wouldn't die here, they kind of have to. Because, for one thing, who Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham are, and the context of what happens in this scenario, and with the story, the what if being so late here, Little Timmy and the Brigade kind of have to die. Because if they didn't, Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham would die, and without them, we know where the story would go. Especially Daryl, who has a spin-off, and I've covered that more times than I care to count also. Glenn and Enid also come back to a much more better-looking Alexandria, almost like nothing had changed, which honestly I think would put Enid in a better mood. And Glenn would probably still have to sway her a little bit, at least when they reach there, but I don't feel that it would be as much as he had to. Tara and Denise probably wouldn't be as down as she was in the original, because there wouldn't be little to any casualties, maybe besides small ones, if any at all. But then we get to a little bit of a problem, which I covered at the end of last episode. The horde. And even though the wolves were able to get the horde away, and even though we're going to have that problem, like I said, with the horde in the future, Alpha's being freaking 10 times more humongous, the situation is dealt with for now, except it's not. Because even though the wolves sacrificed themselves to get rid of the horde, and Owen's dealt with, and everything like that's done, everything should be good, right? There shouldn't be any more twists or turns, right? Well, I'd say that, but there's a problem. The clock tower hasn't fallen yet, and the car was still crashed into the clock tower's position. So, unfortunately, it still does fall. But the good news is, since the horde is miles away from here by now, and reprimanded by Alpha, we now only have a few select walkers from the area who invade Alexandria at this time, because there's little to no walkers by that area. It's very, very small. So they're not even dealt with on the streets. They're dealt with right then and there along the surrounding area. Enough time to get the entire wall there patched up and everything. So, yes, it is a little bit of a problem, but they don't have to hide in the houses. There's no casualties, and everything's pretty much dandy. Soon enough, Daryl Abraham and Sasha return to Alexandria, and Daryl tells everybody about the whole deal with the saviors on the road. He gets to hear about what happened here, and he didn't have to save them this time with the rocket launcher. So hey, they have a few extra rockets on them for that, and I think that's honestly pretty freaking cool, especially seeing Daryl with an RPG. I mean, how friggin' awesome was that when he exploded the saviors? Anyway, sidetracked. Daryl also looks at Eastman when he says that he has even come down to respecting Eastman's code with the whole saving lives thing and seeing what it's done. He's not totally on board with it. He still has skepticism about how that really works, but he does agree on the fact, like, who he used to be and everything else too, and how he changed, and said that he really didn't have a choice when it came to those people on the road. And like Michonne said, sometimes you just have to kill if it's what's best to keep your people alive. Eastman agrees on this and says that even though he would have tried to do it a whole lot differently, as much as he thinks that they tried to do, if they had to kill them, then it's what had to be done. And if it's kept them alive for this long, then he can't really completely say no to them. He can only try to sway their role as much as humanly possible, because it's worked for Pete and for Morgan and for the Wolves. Well, not the Wolves so much. He's trying to make it work for Owen. You guys get my point, and what point they're trying to make. Rick also would agree with this, for what it's worth, not only for Morgan and Pete's sake, but for the fact that a group that he thought was a threat saved his life and everything like that. And for the whole killing thing, it has kept them alive. But Michonne was right also. They should only have to kill when they need to. And he's lost sight of that for a long time, ever since the Claimers and everything. Now, we then get to the 2-month time skip with Rick and Daryl going out and encountering Jesus. But that encounter is going to go a whole lot differently and only have an impact at the gas station, because Morgan is there. Meaning that even though we're not going to see a Morgan and Jesus fight, because I don't think that would be how it went, if anything, Morgan would just be an extra backup person to be able to deal with Jesus. And if he did take the truck, then Morgan being there would add initiative for Rick and Daryl, so nothing would happen. And with that said, Jesus doesn't have any kind of lead here. He doesn't get to do anything. He doesn't get to take the truck. He doesn't get to do anything. Which means the truck's never going to sink into the lake. Now, you guys are probably thinking, since I've really never touched on this or anything like that, that this would prove a small deal, right? Well, big deal. Truck gets, saved. What's the really big deal about it? The big deal is that it's a huge deal. Because if you guys are familiar, which I'm pretty sure like 99.9% of you are familiar with this, if you guys are familiar, that truck was pretty much stocked to the brim. The entire back of that truck was pretty much a stockified source of food, supplies, drinks, you name it. And losing all that is, number one, why Negan didn't take any food, but also the reason why they suffered. The entire group of The Walking Dead suffered so much in season 10 and 11 before the Commonwealth came in, because they were so low on food and supplies. But with the truck around, that is a huge help, meaning that Alexandria is stockpiled with stuff. Now, we don't know if there was also, like, ammunition or stuff in there, but it's a start, It's much more than what they had in the original and what they had going for them. So, I think that works out in the end greatly. So they return to Alexandria, and Rick and Michonne actually get together, because Rick and Jesse were going to get together, or at least that was the whole build-up, but since Pete is still alive and a much better person, that means, for the first time, Pete and Jesse are going to remain together. And their relationship has really actually developed from what we've ever seen it. Because Pete, ever since he got fixed by Eastman, never hit his wife. Never. Not once. And has been a much better caring father to Ron and Sam, and just a much better person. And that would be a very good deal for Jesse, Ron, and Sam. Now, Jesus is still captured, by the way, even though they got the truck and everything. He's still captured. So he still tells everybody about Hilltop, and they rescue Dr. Carson and all them. And the buildup for that plays out as you would expect, with the group going to the Hilltop to meet up with Gregory, and that all playing out the same. But what will happen going into the Ark of the Saviors? Will the Saviors at all die besides the ones on the road? Or is this actually a good way for there to be no conflict with the Saviors? And if there's somehow no conflict, will the Saviors be friends with Rick and them? Or does this mean that the group's still doomed for the lineup anyway? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Hope you guys liked this part and the idea of more people surviving, along with the fact that Alexandria is stockpiled to the brim, which is another key thing. Will Alexandria even need to make a deal with Gregory, considering the fact they have way more than enough stuff now? That's going to be a huge deal coming up here in the future of the story, along with many other things, you know. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this part and everything that's come along with it. Like and subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.